Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for stopping by again. I'm going to bring you up to date briefly on a few items. I'm not going to go into detail. I can do that another time if it's necessary, but some of you will remember that some weeks ago, the Pan American Highway was closed down temporarily by truckers and some others to protest the high gasoline prices, and it got involved with every other issue under the sun, right? And people were all upset and all terribly concerned, and this was, really terribly dramatic, as it typically is, and superficially. But in fact, Panama has its ways of dealing with these things. The Panamanian people know how to go about doing it. And as long as everybody plays by the rules, everybody gets something out of it. This is what it boils down to. And that means sitting and talking. It means having up conferences, getting around a big conference table with all sorts of actors involved and talking and trying to come to some sort of agreement. And what it boils down to, as in the government in this case, offered some concessions to the truckers in terms of gasoline price, et cetera, temporarily. And there's a suggestion of some other changes would be considered and so forth. That was what was presented, and everybody said, "Okay, just go home." But of course, some of the groups weren't satisfied at all because they had a whole laundry list of things they wanted done. Not happening, and they're not happening because the bulk of the people don't support them. It's that simple. It's hard to explain to folks here what goes on and how it's done, but it boiled down to, this is it. You're lucky to get this, and we're not going any further. At this point, we can have more discussions later, but we're not going to sit here for the rest of the year talking. And nobody, you don't have any protests here. Nobody was upset with that. If they were upset by anything, it took so long to get to that point. But still, it was gotten to, and it's over. It's finished. And people will talk about it and so on. It's not the sort of thing you try pulling off every third Tuesday. And anybody who tries to do that again in the next couple of years is probably going to get some very unpleasant looks from people. It's about every decade or so. It's a different story, but, not make a regular business of this. Everybody gets hurt by it. It's just sort of silly. But also, it is a way of bringing issues to a head and getting people to sit down and talk who may find it more convenient not to talk to each other. Well, tough luck. This is a situation where a democracy is a democracy, and one of the things it requires is that people sit down and talk and try to find common ground if they can, and take it when they find it. So that's passed. It's gone. It's as if it seems like it was years ago, but it wasn't. But it's the way it is done, and so be it. Now, beyond that, in the last week here, these last few days, I have had to learn, again, relearn, so to speak, 2 lessons. One to my own shame and embarrassment, because I had no excuse for it. The other, which is no surprise, but was a great disappointment. And the surprise was not so much what happened, but how some people responded to it. Okay, so let's cut to the chase here. I've been talking about the pods, sea pods, eco pods, and everything else from the ocean builders. And they were kind enough to invite me over to a gathering, the reception in the evening locally for people who were coming down to take a look. People came in from around the world. I mean, people from other countries and so forth. It was quite a gathering. And then out to the bay, Linton Bay, on the Caribbean side, to actually see the first one that had just been put up. Finally got it up just before the conference began, and be introduced to it in full flood. They have others under construction as well. So anyhow, what happened, really summarized fairly quickly, is that I went that evening. I went early because I wanted to leave early so I could get some work done, and also get up at the crack of dawn for this next trip. So I went over, and they had really quite a spread out there in terms of food and drink. But I ended up talking to people and seeing things and watching things and listening to things and whatever. I get so involved in this that I didn't eat anywhere near as much as I planned to eat. I go for the food, And they had some chocolate there, desserts that were to die for, really good, But I had gone to see some of the people who were down, talking to them. And I met them. And I remember one gentleman, for a reason to be obvious later, talked to me, and he said, I really wish this would work, but I don't see how they're going to deal with what we call black water, which is the wastewater, the bad wastewater. How are you going to take care of that at sea and without and somehow poisoning the environment in the process? He said, I don't see how it's going to work. And I said, well, we're going to find out tomorrow. That's what it boils down to. So there were people down who were really interested. They wanted it to work, but there was skepticism about how they were going to deal with some of the engineering aspects of it. This is really pretty bold, because they didn't take the easy way out, which would have been an echo pod, which is theirs to be built on the ground, rooted. It looks just like the others. It's way up in the air, but it comes from the ground itself, not floating on the water. Instead, they took the most challenging one. All right. So I'm up, and I leave there having not eaten half as much as I meant to. I go back home, take care of stuff, and I go right to bed, because I know I'm going to get up before dawn to get myself organized, answer emails. Your emails come in at all hours of the day and night, I can assure you. You're from all over the world. It's logical. I want to see what's happening. And then I need to get ready and call an Uber and get over there in time to find the bus and get on the bus. It's going to take us out, and it's a couple hours out there to the bay to see things going on. I did the whole routine, and before I left, I had a cup of coffee and a banana. Wow. Okay. Just a little extra information. So off I go, and it's, I don't know what it was, 10:30 or 11, somewhere in that neighborhood, when we ended up at Linton Bay, and we walked into a whole crowd of people. We were not the first ones there. And all sorts of activities underway, and so many little booths set up with all sorts of stuff going on, demonstrations and what have you, meeting a lot of people. And literally, from 12, 15 different nations. There were presentations by government ministries who were represented. And of course, the ocean builders themselves. There were those, in almost all cases, those in English were translated into Spanish, those in Spanish into English, and so forth. So that because there were plenty of Panamanians there too, and we had one speaker who spoke in Italian, and he was translated into Spanish and English. So it was really interesting. I just sort of ignored. Again, I missed out on the food, and it's always a big mistake. Never miss out on the food at these things. So I grabbed a couple of things, I said, thought nothing of it, and just kept on. And we walked down, and there it was. And I'm going to show you a photograph of me trying to get a selfie done where I'm really focused not on me, myself, but on the item behind me. And you will see, as I'm sure you're looking now, a sea pod. It was a perfect day, as you might suggest. It was beautiful. It was hot. But if you stayed it wasn't too bad if you stayed in the shade. But it was a perfect day for photography and everything else. And I sat and met more people, interesting people. I had a good time. I was really learning, and yet I was tired. I thought, hey, gods, it's been a long day. Mm-hmm. And then it got worse. And then one of you, we won't use names because that's not fair, but people who would come and I'd visited with me in the past who were looking for a place and looking over Panama, and who ended up coming back, as it turns out. The wife was there with her kid to take a look at what was going on, and she came up to me and said, Bob, and I didn't click at first who she was. I do meet a lot of you over time. But she described it, and it slowly came back, and I said, yeah, great. And she said, well, why don't you come over? They're living in a boat for now. Very beautiful one, I might add. So she said, come on over, and I'd like you to show you where we're staying now and this. And so she had to help me get up. I was crashing. I never had felt so old in my life. I was having trouble walking. It was a little tricky getting on the boat from the side. I mean, there's nothing tricky about it under normal circumstances. But I got in. Thankfully, it was air conditioned, and I got she made a smoothie, and that was very nice, and so on. But there it was, and I was happy that I had seen her. But I thought I don't know what to say. I felt as if I was 107 years old, not 77. The energy was gone. I was dragging my butt, let me tell you. So I got up, I got off the boat, thanked her, thankfully, and went down and found that there was a van going back earlier than the bus I had come on. And this is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So did I want to go back earlier? And I said, yes, I think so. I'm exhausted. And that took a while, but we got on it, and I sat on it for an hour. In a couple hours, I got back. I had my Uber and everything else. Got back to my apartment and so on. And I'm sitting there, and I realized, I feel like I really, really old. And I am depressed, distraught. I mean, really distraught. And then it dawns on me. And all that time, since I set off to see them the night before, through the entire affair, I have had one banana, 1 cup of coffee, a couple small orange drinks, and some food that had some liquid in it, too. I mean, there's something in everything, but not that much. And a glass of water. Mm-hmm. And about half of a smoothie that I was able to finish. And that's it. And now you're looking at somebody who well over 100 10Ks, 10 milers, half marathons, and marathons. I've been through that, so many of them. And someone who's lived in the tropics and worked in the tropics over a period of 55 years. When I was not visiting in the U.S., I spent more time outside than inside often. And I had gotten severely dehydrated. And that hadn't happened to me in years and years and years, because I was smart enough, intelligent enough, never to let it happen. I knew what happened. I knew I didn't want to get dehydrated. And it's so easy to avoid. People had bottles of water. I didn't even bother to get one, You take your bottle of water, and you're going to be fine. You keep drinking throughout the entire process. I hadn't done it, so for the first time in decades, I crashed from that. This is a terrific stress to put on the body, and it's not recommended that you try it just to see what it feels like, I can assure you. The moment I started drinking water, which was immediate, when I was busy kicking myself for being such an idiot, it was like, you see a plant that's sort of folded over because it hasn't been watered, and you water it, and 30 minutes later, it's right back up again. That was me. So that was a lesson relearned. And I hope I didn't frighten anybody thinking, I can't come to Panama. I would get dehydrated. You do that in July and August up north. You do that in the middle of winter. It was a very dry period, too. You have to... Dehydration is something that is not easily understood until it gets so severe that you can't ignore it. That's what happened with me. You never want to get there, anywhere you are. So, I can say, what a dumb thing, what a terrible mistake it was, and all that. I was just stupid on my part. That's all. It was my own fault. Don't do what I did. So that's the lesson I had to relearn the hard way. And I'm glad in a way, in the sense that I did. I was around people who were very kind and very good-natured. The second lesson I learned was that things don't always go the way you want them to, even when they appear to be. And that this was a very exciting day. Despite the fact I was crashing, I was also fascinated by what was going on. That man who worried about the Blackwater situation, whatever, I saw him again. He said, I'm really impressed. I said, I never thought of their way of dealing with it. I think that can work. I said, he was obviously very excited. The whole crew of people from I don't know how many countries, a dozen countries, and Panamanians, local people, and one of the poorest areas in the country, who put their heart and souls into all this, and there was so much enthusiasm, and the ministry officials from Panama City were saying wonderful things. It couldn't have been a better presentation in every respect except one. Because after I got back, and I'm recovering here, I get a message from a friend of mine. He said, "Did you see this?" Well, sometime after I had departed, the pod, which you saw in that moment, tipped over. Something happened to the mooring. I don't, or whatever happened, I don't know yet. It's a detail. It moved slowly. Nobody got hurt. No damage of any significance was done to anything. It didn't sink. It just tipped over to one side. And it looked awful. But it looked terrible. And then, of course, cell phones? Oh, of course, everybody had all sorts of footage of this. We'd had television crews there. The publicity was immense that was coming out of all this. And bam, this happens. Whoa. I couldn't, I was crushed for these people. All of them who would put so much time and effort into doing this had done such a spectacular job. And I knew what was going to happen. Of course, there was the social media and everybody's making their crude comments. And it just really annoyed me a lot. And I summed it up and I wrote on a friend's page or a Facebook page, and I put it to him this way and to his audiences. And I'm reading it to you word for word as everything I said. It was a perfect day and an impressive example of new technology combined with as intense human dedication as I have seen in nearly 8 decades of seeing. It was a brilliant success and remains one. The only real failure would be to ignore the success. And that's exactly what I meant at the time and what I mean today. For all that stupid little video 15-second thing, I refuse to rerun it. It's just silly. It's stupid. I'm just depressed that it had to happen that way. But what I'm impressed with is also the great reaction many people had to rise to the defense and to point out the fact that this is what happens when you're an entrepreneur. This is what happens when you do something other people have not done quite this way. And when you deal with a lot of very serious technical questions for the first time and you create whole new ways of dealing with challenges, engineering challenges, it's very impressive. And it was. So all in all, as I said here, I'm as impressed. I said in my own Facebook page that I was as impressed today when I wrote it as I had been the day before, and it's worth. So enough is enough. They are working on it. They're taking care of things. They're learning, and through this failure, they're going to have a stronger. They're going to take care of this. I mean, come on. When you see the mountains they have climbed, this is a small hill in comparison, so they're going to take care of that. They have other orders. Orders have come in. This is going to move, and so I'm going to just leave it at that. I don't get paid by these people. I didn't get half as much food out of them as I expected to. Next time, I will get a lot more liquid from them, and it won't be alcoholic. I can assure you. Plenty of water would be just fine. So that's it. Wanted to bring you up to date on that. Other things are happening. We do have, I'm going to do a special on real estate. Okay, it's coming up soon. I just need to get a couple of things done. I think there needs to be, I need to do something more to help. We've got things going on that I don't like and other things that are fine. But right now, so much of the activity is actually at the high end of the market. That is the $500,000 or more properties. Those were really, it's a bit astonishing to most people, but that's where so much of the action is because the business community is here in spades. Nobody's left. They're back. They're definitely back. And more have come in. A lot of activity here. Do we have Peruvians? Yeah, we have Peruvians coming up because they're having problems in their own nation. And, we're the safe haven for people all over the Western Hemisphere. So it's just as normal as it can be. We have Argentinians coming up to visit the world's second largest duty-free zone, and I'm going to talk about that too in another video finally coming up, because now it's relevant. Now I see them doing what the Venezuelans did in part, and I'm wondering whether we're going to see more of them coming up. The Latin American market is alive and kicking. The upper income market is alive and kicking. We're getting some now. We need more of are the people like yourselves, most of you, who are middle class people, or you're upper middle class, or whatever you think you are. Whatever you are, you're as valuable to me whether you're looking for $100,000 or $1 million home. I don't care. But we're getting more of you, and I think I have to do something to help. The last time I sat and watched this, all in the first few years I was here, and in those days at least, everybody was happy and cheerful and jolly, and people were coming down just so excited. Panama could do no wrong. Everything was. They were making money on selling homes. Retirees who they paid off their mortgage years ago, or they had very little left to pay off, and they'd just been paid like a $50 or $75 a month mortgage, this sort of thing. And here they came down, and wow, it was like they were going to create the second bubble. They were in the process of creating a bubble up there. The people they had sold to were creating a bubble. They came down here and started to buy into one, but it didn't work out. Thank God. When things went wrong for them, the Venezuelans stepped right in and picked right up where they dropped off. 2009, it was almost like, bam, bam, right in line. And the housing market here got through it well. Now we're going through a very different set of circumstances here, and the problems and challenges that face you are real. And I want to be able to do what I can and offer it to you. So it doesn't cost you a penny, but it's going to take more work, and so I'm focused on that. And when it's ready, I will let you know and pass it along to you. In the meantime, if you're headed this way, I always enjoy seeing you. I've seen so many in the last few weeks, and it's good to see you. And it's good to know, as with a couple and their children who live in the boat, they come and you do actually stay, and even if it's on a boat. And I think that's a beautiful boat like that. I don't blame them. So enough for that. I will be back again soon. As soon as we can get this thing I'm working on to try to be helpful to you, I want to get back on here and discuss it and focus on that. But I needed to get this said today, and I just tell you that I'm feeling good and I'm going to live. Here I go again. Another year or two or three, and I look forward to it, especially if you're around. Thanks for stopping by. I look forward to talking to you again.